and welcome to the August 20th, 2014 legislative session of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Trustee Codman.
Present.
Trustee Quezada.
Present.
Mayor Hanauer.
Present.
Are there any mayors and trustees announcements this evening?
Yes, there are. On this Friday evening, August 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Engle Park stage, after the Lobster Fest at the Ossining Boat and Canoe Club, which was co-sponsored by the Greater Ossining Chamber of Commerce, the summer concert series continues with KJ Dennert, a good friend. KJ, praised for her pathos, originality, and impeccable musicianship, will make you laugh, she'll make you cry, she'll make you dance. Her special award-winning blend of urban folk and jazz has earned her 4 Independent Music Award nominations and the honor of being named one of Jazz.com's top female vocalists. She's appeared in scores of music festivals and has residences in, by which I mean she plays regularly in New York City at the 55 Bar on Christopher Street and at Smoke, and at the Baz Bar in St. Bart's, and in the Umbria Jazz Festival, which I think is really quite extraordinary. KJ is a one-of-a-kind songwriter, guitarist, and performer, and she is not to be missed. Bring your chairs, bring dinner, or buy dinner at the Wobble Cafe concession. On September 3rd, school opens, September 4th for the high school, and at the Board of Trustees meeting on that same day, on September 3rd, we will proclaim September Attendance Matters Month. We join our schools, Ossining communities that care, and student advocacy in our community's drive to improve every student's school attendance. I hope some are listening out there, as well as their parents, and to make sure that every student attends school every day. Children can suffer academically if they miss 10% of the school year, or 18 days. It can be just 1 day every 2 weeks. So please ensure that your children, particularly in the early grades, attend school every day and arrive on time. Every day counts, and on September 3rd, we will repeat that. On Saturday, September 6th, join Ossining Matters Educational Foundation for their 12th annual fundraising and fun 5K race and walk. This year, runners begin at the Main Street Post Office, while walkers begin at the Double Arches. They will all follow the same trail along the Croton Aqueduct towards the Crawbucky Beach Nature Center, accessing the park via a path created by New Avalon Residential Complex. So it's a new path. Walkers will venture into the complex before heading back. Runners will go a little bit farther north than that before returning to the Double Arches finish line. Be prepared. It is a multi-surface course: pavement, grass, dirt, wood chips. That's a lot of different things, so you have to be very careful. It's a varying elevation and uneven terrain. It has stairs and it has hills. There'll be a kids festival for the youngest runners and walkers following the run, plus an award ceremony with medals for participants of all ages. Register now at www.ossiningmatters.org until September 4th. On Friday, September 5th, Ossining Matters will offer in-person registration along with the pre-race packet pickup from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Ossining Community Center. Check-in for all participants will take place from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center at 95 Broadway. Pre-registered walkers and runners will receive T-shirts while the supplies last. Children under 12 or 12 and under must be accompanied by an adult. Free refreshments provided. What else?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, if you've not looked into the Energize program, you can check it out at ossining.energizeny.org. And we talk primarily about the residential aspect of that program, but it has grown. It was the first program that was launched by NWEAC, the Northern Westchester Energy Action Consortium, but it is its very own organization now, and it does still certainly have a vibrant residential component, but it is also now there are opportunities for commercial properties and nonprofit properties to also take advantage of the energy efficiency audit that can be done on your property, and then there's financing options available for any upgrades that people choose to do. And as I've mentioned before, it may cost no out-of-pocket expenses because you will save so much money on the upgrades that the savings will pay for the cost of that you choose to invest in any upgrades. So I encourage you once again to visit ossining.energizeny.org, and there's the application process keeps getting easier and easier, so please check it out.
Madam Clerk?
We'll move into administrative reports. Corporation Counsel Lori Lee Dixon.
Thank you. Good evening. Just a reminder that the village's website now contains the complete draft environmental impact statement for the proposed Algonquin pipeline expansion across the Hudson River. This is a major project being undertaken by which natural gas will be transported across the Hudson, just actually south of the current nuclear power plant. So it's an important project for the region on many levels, and not the least of which is everyone has an opportunity to provide public comment. There is an open meeting. A public meeting starts at 6:30 in the town of Cortland, and that date was changed from the 11th to the 18th. We have all of this information on the village's website, and if additional information is needed, they're certainly welcome to call the village manager's office at 941-3554, and we'd be happy to give them whatever information we have. But I just want the public to be aware of the meeting date change, and also encourage people to make comment in writing, and otherwise the instructions for those comments are on the village's website. So that was an important part of my report. Also, tonight we're talking about the zoning amendments. This was in response to conversations about the current zoning law requiring a percentage, 10% in certain zoning districts, and bedroom counts to include 3-bedroom units in residential projects. So we're being responsive and proactive, and with the board's approval tonight, we'll be setting a public hearing to discuss this zoning amendment. We've had to set the hearing a little farther out. Valerie has been kindly assisting me with transmitting reports and the proposed law to the county as required under statutory law, and also the various other places where notice is required. It's an extra level of notice is required when you're amending your zoning ordinance. So you'll see we're not setting that public hearing to the 17th in tonight's resolution. Thank you.
Police Chief Joseph Burton.
Good evening. Statistics for July: blotter entries recorded 2,203. Vehicle and traffic summonses issued 131. Parking summonses 1,391. Part 1 crimes and uniform crime reports were 25. Arrests for the month were 56. Penal law 38. Village ordinances 3. Vehicle and traffic were 15. Also in the uniform crime reports of burglaries, there were 7 in the month of July, and it seemed like there were into certain areas. We notified people via the Facebook to, lock their doors, keep track of what their neighborhoods are. It did sort of somewhat of a panic on some people, that it was a big thing that was happening. It was 2 on one street, 1 on another street, and the other were on the other side of town. But the detectives, well, the whole department, the one that was down in the Hollow area, there were 2 people that did daytime burglary, interrupted, foot pursuit, canine pursuit, and one party was arrested, but he made a mistake. He broke into another house to hide. And we lost him. He came out of Dale Park, and we lost him in the area, but we contained the area. He went into the house just off Dale, and we ended up being in front of the house, and the people came home, and somebody screamed, and the young 12-year-old, which we'll be getting an award for, looked at him and locked him in. He couldn't get out. The kid turned the lock and locked him in the basement. So he was arrested for 2 counts of burglary. So that was some. And then the ones that were up at Indian Village and a little bit over, there were 2 arrests made on 3 burglaries there. Plus probably, and you just can't fit them in, there were probably the other 2 that are hanging out there were probably part of this because they were all similar in nature. So they did a nice job in there. Like I said, we tried it on social media. It does a nice thing with social media, but don't panic. We're not being overrun by crimes, please. And as the mayor stated, schools open. Going back to drive carefully. Remember, the last 2 months that you had when you made it to work in 5 minutes, it's probably going to take a lot more time to get to work. Give yourself a little bit more time. School buses are out there, and we are out there, and the fines are extremely heavy for passing a stop school bus, as they should be. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually have been notified that since we will have a great number of pre-K kids going to school in the morning and in the late afternoon, that the school buses will move even more slowly than usual, stopping more often than usual. So plan your trip to the train station a lot longer than you usually are, particularly on places like Spring Street, because there is the Park School will be one of the venues for the pre-K kids, and that already has a lot
Three-year-olds'
of
legs
buses.
are not that high to get onto that bus. It does take them a little bit of time to get on, and then getting off with their backpack, I'm sure, it takes a lot longer.
Yeah. So thank you, Chief.
Fire Chief Jason Lorenz.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow board members. To date, the fire department has responded to 401 alarms in 2014. I'd like to thank the residents of Ossining. It was noticed on August 1st, our Fireman's Parade. We had a nice turnout, not just from the visiting departments, but also on the side of the roads. It was a little cloudy night, but we were able to have a nice parade that evening. Also, this past month, beginning of the month, our OFD venturing crew, which consists of young adults between the ages of 14 to 21, attended Putnam County Explorer Weekend that was held in Lake Carmel. There was firefighter skills that these young adults learn up there consisted of forcible entry, ropes and knots, mass confidence. There was EMS, search and rescue, and also firefighter survival skills. On Sunday, there was a competition day amongst the other youth groups. Our OFD venturing crew was able to get first place in the bucket brigade, third place in the firefighter relay, and they also won first place in the tug of war up there too. So they're pretty strong kids there. If anybody's interested in joining our OFD venturing crew, as I mentioned, they're between the ages of 14 and 21. We meet every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. They can call our OFD headquarters. It's 941-0215 for more information. Also like to recognize Washington Hook and Ladder, Tower Ladder 42. They held a dinner this month for 3 members with 50 years of service. I'd like to congratulate Bill Bolger, Larry Karen, and Tommy O'Connor for their years of service to the Austin community. And also the training, OFD is scheduled confined space training in September. We've been working with an outside group along with the DPW, and that'll take place in September.
Thank you. That was a great event honoring the 3 guys. A lot of fun.
Village Engineer Paul Frioli.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board.
Me?
First, I want to draw your attention to Resolution C, and that is the money that we received from the auction that we held last month is now being distributed to the appropriate departmental lines, which are all run out of Central Garage, where those vehicles are maintained. And I can tell you that's greatly needed money, and that for police, rec, and DPW, all those lines are taxed already, so that's really offset money, and I appreciate getting it from the surplus sales. Where actually I've already spoken to both department heads. We're going to try to do another auction maybe in the latter part of this year for other types of equipment to help offsetting those lines. With regard to some site and road work that the crews have been taking place this last month, we're getting ready for hurricane season. They're doing a lot of stormwater work, and should be buttoning that up within the next couple of weeks before we start making the transition into preparing for the fall season. Some of the work that we're doing with outside contractors is also going to take place over the next couple of weeks, including some more significant stormwater work behind some outfalls and the paving of Pleasantville Road, which got put on hold for a little bit with Con Ed. As you could see them on Sutton and Roosevelt Square area. They were supposed to be done last week. That's obviously not the case. Hopefully they'll be done by the end of this week, and we can start thinking about getting in there before school starts, so we don't run into the dilemma that we're going to already have with the school buses once they get on the road, because that's going to be a significant impact on traffic, particularly during the rush hour. So we're going to try to work around that and prior to that as best as we can. I was in the Kilbrook this morning, and I could tell you that 90% of the line cased. They're actually starting a component of the actual walk section. That's moving along nicely, and again, as I said last month, barring anything catastrophic, we are on schedule to meet the consent order easily. So we're in a comfortable position there, but you know, until we're done, we're not done. Most of our other capital projects are pretty well buttoned up, and we'll be closing those out soon, and we're looking forward to heading into the budget season. Thank you.
Looking forward, what an odd concept.
Superintendent of Water and Sewer, Andrew Teese. Bless you.
Good evening.
Evening.
Our Indian Brook Reservoir is now at 92%, not 100% like last month. Currently, we're purchasing 100% of our water from New York City, and we don't like to let it go below 90%. Just it's you know, it's an insurance policy having 20 days of storage for the village in that watershed area if we need it. Last month we purchased 65% of our water from New York City. So I always get onto the DEP websites and I look at rainfall versus actual versus what was historical. And like in the month of July, because the plant puts out water based on rainfall and how people irrigate. Month of July, we had 6 inches of rain. Normally we have and normally the past history was 4 inches of rain. This month, the history would be 3 inches of rain, and we had less than 3/4 of an inch. So you can see that the plant, you know, last year at this time, the filter plant would put out about 4.2 million gallons a day. Right now, we're putting out 4.7 million gallons a day. It's weather dependent. Even though it's not that hot, people still irrigate. Hazen Soar engineers will be on site, the environmental engineers that are doing the alternative water study for us at the filtration plant within the next 2 weeks. They're going to be reviewing our system distribution water demands. Valerie was kind enough to provide us with a lot of baseline history of what was forecasted for the future. And a lot of that seems to be lining up with actuals, which is good. But we're going to look to see where we stand with the filter plant and how much water the filter plant can put out, and they'll give their recommendations to us within the next few months. The installation for the emergency generator at the filter plant. The contractor actually did the markouts this week. They started today, and they started cutting the driveway and started making way for designing the new pad that will go outside the driveway area. That generator startup is next week. The chief operator of the plant is actually going to fly out to the factory, witness the test, and get trained, and I expect that to be installed within the next 3 months. The operations center generator is moving right along. All underground conduits have been installed. The concrete pad is going to be poured within the next week. The new generator at the Pleasant Road pump station is up and running. Now we have the ability to operate that pump station in any extended outage situation. So that's run off of natural gas. The old diesel generator had a 50-gallon tank, which they would have to go out twice a day to fill up in an extended period of time. It should, it's continuous duty, so it's the right piece of equipment for the situation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Treasurer Thomas Warren.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Board of Trustees. We finished our second installment of property tax collections for 2014. I'm pleased to report that as of today, the unpaid taxes totals less than $580,000, which is in the ballpark of where it's generally been, although it's actually $90,000 lower than it was as of this day a year ago, and that represents 97.3% of the entire tax roll being collected so far this year. And we are also still collecting prior year taxes as well as current year taxes. Right now the balance of the prior year taxes is down to less than $389,000, down from $651,000 at the start of the year, and we did collect $51,000 in the past 6 weeks, so that's coming along pretty well. And we heard from the largest taxpayer of unpaid taxes who's been talking to us about finding out the schedule for, you know, filing liens and penalties and such, so I'm hopeful that they'll be in to see us shortly. Moving on to water rents. Last week at the work session, we talked about general fund finances for the first half year, and I told you that I'd be coming back to talk about water rents tonight, and I listened with interest Andy's report, trying to figure out if water revenues are, if water production is up this year, then why are revenues pretty much stable to where they were a year ago. We had raised the water rates 2%, but as indicated, the dollar amount is about the same as where it was last year. We're about $4.1 million, which is 45% of the budgeted revenue for the year. You know, water rents and sewer is always on a lag because we bill in a cyclical basis, and we're always billing for the quarterly 3 months in arrears. But you know, we're in the general ballpark of where we should be, revenues to budget. Sewer rents, $556,000 year to date, which is 48% of the amount budgeted for the year. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about some of the work that we do in our office in our role as town controller for the town of Ossining under an intermunicipal agreement. Earlier this month, we had prepared for a meeting with the town to meet with Moody's for a bond rating in advance of their bond sale, which is closing this week. And we were very pleased that the town was afforded a bond upgrade from AA3 with a positive outlook to a AA2. So just happy to be a small part of that process.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Village Planner Valerie Monastra.
Good evening. I'll start off talking about the update on the larger development projects. 36 Water Street, the applicant proposes to build 137 units. The planning board has requested the applicant to appear at the next planning board meeting and to discuss how they would like to proceed. The planning board is anxious to wrap up this project. Hudson Step, the applicant proposes to build 188 units, including infrastructure improvements, historic preservation, 10% affordable housing, and green buildings. We received the draft final environmental impact statement, and we anticipate the planning board scheduling a public hearing on the matter in September. Victoria Home, the applicant proposes to reconstruct their facilities and create a facility for 120 beds. They started their environmental review process, and we anticipate having a draft DEIS submitted to the planning department sometime within the next month or so. 25 Secor Road, the applicant proposes to build a 7-unit mixed-use building. The application is still pending before the planning board, awaiting the results of an internal joint department meeting concerning fire access. I also want to take a moment to remind the public about the planning process in the Village of Ossining. All larger projects have to undertake an environmental review, and as part of any approval process, each development needs to undergo an analysis on potential impacts that a development might have on the village's current public infrastructure, such as sewer and water, and if needed, upgrades or mitigation measures are incorporated into the project. Furthermore, developments are reviewed by numerous village departments and by various state, county, and at times federal agencies. Key community stakeholders such as the Ossining School District, Department of Corrections, and Metro North are notified about any development that could have a potential impact on the organization or properties. The Planning Department keeps all documents on all correspondences concerning community stakeholders, and they are very much part of the planning process from the beginning. Each agency's level of engagement is of its own determination, but the Planning Department's doors are always open. For example, the Planning Department now has a monthly scheduled phone call with the superintendent of the Ossining School District. The Ossining School District met with the Planning Board in June, and the superintendent is scheduled to attend the Planning Board meeting next week. Resolution D also follows on the heels of previous discussions with the school district and their demographers from BOCES. If anybody's ever interested in looking at the documentation analysis that takes place during the planning process, please contact the Planning Department at 914-762-6232. The Planning Board and Board of Architectural Review have reviewed 20 new applications so far this year. The Zoning Board of Appeals has reviewed 19 applications. The Historic Preservation Commission has worked on 5 and is continuing its work on the historic signage walking tour. I am now beginning my work on the license agreements with the various property owners for the signs, and photos are being scanned on the project and soon will be ready to submit templates to the museum in the streets for formatting. The Environmental Advisory Council has worked on 3 LWRP consistencies applications this year, and we have 2 new members, so we'd like to welcome them to the EAC. Also, updates on the affordable housing. 15 out of 17 leases have been signed at Avalon. 105 Croton Avenue, application deadline just passed for the 2 affordable units there. 56 applications were received. Application deadline also ended for 97 Main Street. 18 applications were received for that unit. Application deadline today was for 147, 155 Main Street for the 3 units there, and as of Monday we had 28 applications submitted for these units. So it's been a busy month on affordable housing. But we're hoping all of these units to hopefully have tenants by October. PACE University streamlining development approval process. PACE has finished their streamlining report. A final report will be issued to the village board by the end of next week. PACE will be at the September 3rd village board meeting to present their results and recommendations. And then finally, new preliminary maps for FEMA were released last night. The village, again, will begin the process of review, community education, and ultimate adoption of the new maps and any corresponding legislation. It's anticipated that the process will be completed in 2016. I went to a meeting today on the new maps, and so just the preliminary maps have been released, and we'll be beginning that process that we took place back in 2008 again. They have modified the various zones, so where there used to be higher velocity zones, they have decreased those zones due to better data. They actually did what they call LiDAR data back in 2012, which took much better topography and more current topography of the shorelines, and so all of that has been incorporated into their new.
Thank you.
Superintendent of Parks and Recreation, Henry Atterbury.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. First, summer's over, camps are done. Thank you very much.
Don't need to look so happy about it.
And we have a couple of special events. Obviously, the brochure went out. You know, we'll start registration the week of September 2nd. There are people out there that are looking to register online for swim classes. They should contact the community center, make sure their account is up to date, that their ID card is up to date. Otherwise, they won't be able to register online. The last time we did the swim lessons, we had 290 children, so the swim program at the community center has become very popular. Went from 165 prior to that to 290. The after-school program starts in September. The Spartan swim team starts in September. And swim lessons start in September. And special events, you have Fall Family Fun Day, October 4th. And September 20th, we also have the Richard Wishney Park. They're going to be doing a health fair expo up at the Reservoir Park from 10 to 2. Anybody's interested in learning more information about that, they can contact the community center. That's a fundraiser to help support improvements to the park by Richard Wishney. And I think that's about it.
Thank you.
Are there any organization announcements this evening? Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on village board resolutions? Move into village board resolutions approval of minutes, August 6, 2014, regular meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the August 6, 2014, regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Board?
All those in
Madam Clerk?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Letter B, approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated August 20th, 2014 in the amount of $650,853.94. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Board? Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter C, finance budget modification, 2014 budget modification for proceeds from auctioned vehicles. Resolved, the 2014 general fund budget is modified to appropriate proceeds from the sale of surplus auction vehicles as follows. Increased general fund appropriations, street maintenance vehicle operating expense in the amount of $15,925. Central garage police vehicle parts, $1,420. Central garage parts vehicle parts, $1,195. Total increase to general fund appropriations, $18,540. Increased general fund estimates revenues. Sale of surplus equipment in the amount of $18,540. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Board? Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter D, call for public hearing for local law number 4, 2014 zoning amendments, lead agency designation under SECRA and referrals to Planning Board and EAC. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining is considering adoption of a proposed local law known as Introductory Local Law Number 4, 2014, entitled Zoning Amendments, which would amend certain provisions of Chapter 270 of the Code of the Village of Ossining to remove the minimum requirement for inclusion of 3-bedroom residential units in the CDD, IR, PW-A, PW-B, and PW-C zoning districts. And whereas pursuant to New York State law, the village board must conduct a public hearing on the proposed local law during which the public shall have the opportunity to be heard. And whereas pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and corresponding regulations thereto, any amendment to Chapter 270 zoning is an unlisted action for which the Board of Trustees has prepared a short environmental assessment form. And whereas pursuant to Section 270-59 of the Village of Ossining Code, the Board of Trustees acknowledges its obligation to seek a report from the Planning Board in advance of the public hearing, since Local Law Number 4, 2014 concerns proposed amendments to Chapter 270 of the Village Code. And whereas pursuant to Chapter 262 of the Village of Ossining Code entitled Waterfront Consistency Review, the Board of Trustees acknowledges its obligation to make a determination of consistency of any unlisted action with the village's local waterfront revitalization program, and will seek the necessary recommendation of the Ossining Environmental Advisory Council and forward a coastal assessment form. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to SECRA, the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees hereby assumes the role of lead agency on the action, and be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees, in accordance with Section 270-59 of the Village Code, hereby refers to the Planning Board for a report certain proposed amendments to Chapter 270 as set forth in proposed introductory local law number 4, 2014. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees, in accordance with Chapter 262 of the Village Code, hereby refers introductory local law number 4, 2014 to the Environmental Advisory Council for a recommendation regarding the local waterfront consistency. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing on introductory local law number 4, 2014, entitled Zoning Amendments, on September 17, 2014, at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Ossining, New York, at 7:30 p.m., or as soon thereafter as such matter may be heard, during which the public shall have the opportunity to offer comments on such local law. And be it further resolved that the introductory local law number 4, 2014 shall be available for public review at the village clerk's office and the Village Department of Planning until close of business on September 17, 2014, and on the Village of Ossining website at www.villageofossining.org. And be it lastly resolved that the village board directs all requisite notices to be published and/or distributed in accordance with the applicable law. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. On the board. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any continuing business of the board?
Ma'am.
New business of the board?
Ma'am.
Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board?
No?
Is that a yes or?
Yes or no? Would you like to address the board? Okay. Would like to call for a recess?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, this ends tonight's legislative session. We do not have a work session next week. This happens in every August and usually around Christmas as well. So our next session will be a legislative session on the 3rd of September. Have a wonderful rest of the summer, and we will see you in September. I think there's a song to that effect. That's it for now. We'll see you here again on September 3rd. Night.